The moment you stop living for applause is the moment your life finally begins. My dear friends, let me ask you something very honestly. How tired are you of explaining yourself to people who never truly listen? How exhausted are you from trying to be liked, approved, accepted? Somewhere along the way, many of us stopped asking, "Is this right for my soul?" and started asking, "Will this impress them?" Today, I want to walk with you on a gentle but powerful journey. A journey away from noise, away from validation, and back to yourself. When you try to impress everyone, something very subtle but very dangerous happens inside you. You begin to edit yourself. At first, it feels harmless. You adjust your words a little. You hide one opinion. You soften one dream. You tell yourself, "It's okay, I'll just do this for now." But slowly, that for now becomes a habit, and that habit becomes a lifestyle. Before you realize it, you are no longer living your life, you are performing it. I have seen this in so many young people. Brilliant minds, kind hearts, powerful potential. But their energy is spent not on growth, not on character, not on purpose. It is spent on being liked, on fitting in, on not standing out too much, on not disappointing anyone. And the tragedy is this: the more you try to please everyone, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. Because approval is a moving target. What makes one person happy disappoints another. What earns praise today invites criticism tomorrow. So you keep running, adjusting, explaining, defending, and slowly, quietly, you lose touch with your own inner voice. You stop asking, "Is this right?" and start asking, "Will this be accepted?" This is where exhaustion is born. Not physical exhaustion, emotional exhaustion. The kind where you are surrounded by people, yet feel alone. The kind where you smile outside, but feel hollow inside. Because deep down, your soul knows when it is being ignored. Understand this clearly. When your happiness depends on external approval, your peace is never stable. Today someone praises you, you feel high. Tomorrow someone criticizes you, you feel crushed. Your emotions go up and down, not based on your values, but on other people's moods and opinions. That is not freedom, that is emotional slavery. There is a simple question I often invite people to reflect on: if nobody was watching, would I still live this way? That question reveals everything. Because a life lived only for applause is a life that collapses in silence. Self-respect, on the other hand, grows quietly. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek validation. It is built when you do the right thing even when it's unpopular. When you stay honest even when lying would be easier. When you choose growth even when comfort is tempting. Self-respect is the deep satisfaction of knowing that you didn't betray yourself just to belong. Many people fear disapproval because they confuse it with rejection. But not everyone disagreeing with you is rejecting you, and even if they do, losing approval is not losing worth. Your worth was never given by them in the first place. When you stop chasing approval, something beautiful happens. You start listening inward. You begin to notice what truly matters to you. Your decisions become calmer. Your yes becomes meaningful. Your no becomes powerful. You no longer explain everything to everyone. You no longer need to defend your path. You walk it with quiet confidence. And here is the irony of life. The moment you stop trying to impress people, you actually become more impactful. Because authenticity has a gravity. People may not always agree with you, but they respect someone who is rooted, someone who is real, someone who is not constantly seeking permission to exist. Remember this: you don't need to be liked by everyone to live a meaningful life. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to sleep at night with a peaceful conscience. You need to wake up knowing that you didn't shrink your soul to fit into someone else's expectations. The day you stop living for approval is the day you start living with alignment. And alignment, not applause, is what creates a life of strength, clarity, and quiet fulfillment. Whenever you're unsure, come back to this simple truth: it is better to be respected by yourself than applauded by the world. There comes a moment in life when we must accept a difficult but liberating truth. Not everyone is meant to understand us. And the sooner we make peace with this, the lighter our heart becomes. Many people suffer not because they are failing, but because they are constantly explaining their choices, explaining their silence, explaining their dreams, explaining why they are different. And the exhaustion doesn't come from living life, it comes from justifying it to people who were never meant to walk your path. Every journey has its own language, and only those walking a similar road can truly understand its meaning. You cannot expect someone standing at the shore to understand the patience of a sailor navigating storms in the middle of the ocean. Their perspective is limited not by intention, but by experience. A seed is a beautiful example. When a seed is placed in the soil, it is hidden, it is covered in darkness. If it demanded sunlight immediately, it would never grow. The soil would feel like rejection, the darkness would feel like punishment. But that unseen phase is not neglect, it is preparation. In the same way, there will be seasons in your life when people won't see your effort. They won't understand your discipline. They won't recognize your sacrifice. And if you constantly seek their validation, you will dig yourself out of the soil before your roots are strong. Some people will only value you when they can benefit from your success. Some will support you loudly once the results are visible. And some will quietly disappear when your growth makes them uncomfortable. This is not cruelty, it is human nature. And once you understand human nature, you stop taking everything personally. The mistake many people make is assuming that misunderstanding means they are wrong. It doesn't. Being misunderstood is often the price of being authentic. Every meaningful life journey looks strange from the outside before it looks successful. Think about how often you've delayed decisions because someone wouldn't approve. How many dreams you put on pause because someone doubted you. How many times you dimmed your enthusiasm because someone called you unrealistic. And yet those same people were never responsible for carrying your regrets. Clarity is more important than agreement. You don't need everyone to clap for your choices. You need inner conviction. Because when life becomes difficult, applause won't sustain you. Only clarity will. The right people in your life don't need constant explanations. They may not always agree with you, but they trust your intentions. They trust your values. They trust your heart. And the wrong people, no matter how much you explain, will always find something to criticize. Dare I? A quiet strength in choosing peace over persuasion, in letting go of the need to be understood by everyone. When you release that burden, your energy returns to you. You stop arguing, you stop proving, you stop defending, and suddenly you have space to grow. Remember, even the most sincere actions can be misunderstood by those who see life through insecurity, fear, or comparison. Don't shrink your truth to fit someone else's comfort. Growth often requires standing alone before standing tall. Life becomes simpler when you accept this. Understanding is a gift, not a requirement. Walk your path with humility, but also with courage. Listen to feedback, but don't surrender your direction. Respect others, but don't abandon yourself. When you stop expecting everyone to understand you, you begin to understand yourself better. And that self-understanding becomes your compass. It keeps you steady when opinions change. It keeps you calm when doubts arise. It keeps you moving forward even when applause is absent. Your journey was never meant to make sense to everyone. It was meant to make sense to you. There is a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't post updates. It doesn't wait for recognition. It simply shows up every single day, quietly doing the work. That strength is discipline, and discipline builds what applause never can. Applause is exciting. It feels good. It gives an instant rush. But applause is temporary. It fades as quickly as it comes. Discipline, on the other hand, is slow, sometimes boring, often invisible. But it is reliable. It stays when motivation disappears. It stands firm when no one is watching. Think about this for a moment. Nobody claps when you wake up early while others are sleeping. Nobody congratulates you for saying no to distractions. Nobody celebrates the nights you choose growth over comfort. Nobody sees the inner battles. You fight just to stay consistent. And yet, those unseen moments are shaping your future far more than any moment of praise ever could. Many people wait for inspiration to act. Disciplined people act and allow inspiration to follow. That is the difference. When you rely on applause, your effort depends on an audience. When you rely on discipline, your effort depends on values. There will be phases in life when you are doing everything right, yet nothing seems to be happening. No recognition, no visible progress, no encouragement. This is where most people quit. Not because they are incapable, but because they are discouraged by silence. They mistake silence for failure. But silence is often a sign of deep work. A building makes the most noise when it collapses, not when it is being constructed. Growth is quiet. Transformation is silent. Discipline thrives in that silence. The danger of chasing applause is that it trains you to perform instead of prepare. You begin choosing what looks good instead of what is good. You focus on appearing successful instead of becoming strong. And when the applause stops, as it always does, you feel lost. Discipline doesn't need external motivation because it is fueled by purpose. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers, and only those who are quiet inside can hear it. There is something deeply grounding about routines built on discipline. They create stability in a chaotic world. When everything feels uncertain, discipline gives you structure. It reminds you that even if you can't control outcomes, you can control effort. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? The honest answer is, you don't always. Some days you won't feel like showing up. Some days you'll doubt yourself. Some days progress will feel painfully slow. Discipline is what carries you through those days. Not excitement, not validation, just commitment. A disciplined life. E doesn't mean a rigid life. It means a focused one. It means choosing long-term peace over short-term pleasure. It means honoring promises you make to yourself. And every time you do that, your self-trust grows. And self-trust is a quiet confidence that no applause can replace. The most powerful people you will ever meet are not the loudest ones. They are the ones who kept going when no one noticed. They didn't chase visibility, they chased mastery. They didn't ask who's watching, they asked, am I improving? When discipline becomes your foundation, you stop depending on external approval. You no longer need constant encouragement because your progress speaks to you. You feel it in your strength. You see it in your clarity. You experience it in your calm. One day, people may applaud your success. They may admire your results. They may call it talent or luck, but you will know the truth. You will know it was discipline that built it, quietly, patiently, faithfully, and even if that applause never comes, you will still be rich. Rich in character, rich in resilience, rich in self-respect. Because a life built on discipline doesn't need validation to feel complete. At some point in life, if we are honest with ourselves, we realize that much of our unhappiness doesn't come from lack, it comes from comparison. The habit of constantly measuring our life against someone else's becomes so automatic that we don't even notice how much peace it steals from us. Comparison quietly convinces you that you are always behind. No matter how far you've come, there is always someone ahead, someone richer, someone faster, someone more visible. And the moment you start using another person's journey as the benchmark for your own, contentment disappears. The problem is not ambition, growth is beautiful. The problem is when ambition turns into competition with everyone around you, when your joy depends on being ahead of others, instead of being aligned with yourself. Every human being is born with a different combination of strengths, struggles, timing, and purpose. Yet we insist on comparing outcomes without understanding contexts. You see someone's highlight and compare it to your behind the scenes. You see their success and ignore their sacrifices. You see their smile and never see their battles. Social media has intensified this illusion. It shows victories, not vulnerability. It celebrates outcomes, not effort. And when you consume it without awareness, you start believing that everyone else has life figured out except you. That belief is toxic. Your life is not a race, it is a calling. And a calling cannot be rushed. Some people bloom early, some bloom late. Both are beautiful. A flower doesn't compete with the one next to it. It simply blooms when it's time. When you constantly compare, you become disconnected from your own progress. You stop appreciating how far you've come because you're too busy looking at how far someone else is. Gratitude fades, frustration grows, and peace becomes rare. The truth is, there will always be people ahead of you, and there will always be people behind you. If your peace depends on your position relative to others, you will never be satisfied. There is no finish line where comparison suddenly ends. The moment you stop competing, something liberating happens. You stop wasting energy on jealousy and self-doubt. You redirect that energy into growth, into creativity, into becoming better than who you were yesterday, not better than someone else today. Creation is a much healthier focus than competition. When you create, you are connected to purpose. When you compete, you are trapped in ego. Creation asks, what can I offer? Competition asks, how do I measure up? There is also a deep humility that comes when you stop comparing. You realize that everyone is fighting battles you know nothing about. You stop envying and start understanding. You stop judging and start learning. Peace returns when you accept your timeline, when you respect your process, when you allow life to unfold at its own pace. The anxiety reduces. The constant pressure to prove yourself dissolves. You begin to breathe more freely. You don't need to run someone else's race to be successful. You need to run your own with sincerity. The goal is not to arrive before others. The goal is to arrive as yourself. And here is something very important to remember. Comparison doesn't just steal joy, it also steals clarity. When you're constantly looking sideways, you lose sight of your own direction. But when you focus forward, your path becomes clear. Let others inspire you, not intimidate you. Let their success remind you of what's possible, not what's missing. Celebrate their journey without questioning your own. When you stop measuring your worth using someone else's ruler, peace quietly returns, and in that peace, growth happens naturally. Because fulfillment doesn't come from being ahead of others, it comes from being aligned with yourself. There is a subtle shift that changes everything in life. The moment you stop asking, how do I look? And start asking, how can I help? That shift takes you from performance to purpose, from ego to meaning, from emptiness to fulfillment. Many people believe happiness comes from being admired, from being noticed, from being praised. But admiration is shallow nourishment. It excites you briefly, then leaves you hungry again. Service, on the other hand, feeds something much deeper. It nourishes the soul. When life becomes centered around image, you are constantly maintaining a mask. You think about how you are perceived. You add just yourself to fit expectations. You become cautious, guarded, and tired. But when life becomes about contribution, the mask falls away. You become real, and real living is lighter. True greatness has never been loud. The most impactful people in history didn't spend their lives promoting themselves. They spent their lives improving others. Their legacy wasn't built on attention. It was built on usefulness. Serving doesn't mean becoming invisible or sacrificing your self-respect. It means shifting your focus from impressing to improving, from being seen to being helpful. And the paradox is this: when you stop trying to shine, your light becomes stronger. There is something grounding about service. It pulls you out of your own head, out of endless self-analysis, out of insecurity. When you are focused on helping someone else, your own problems shrink. Not because they disappear, but because they lose their power over you. Ego thrives on comparison. Service thrives on compassion. Ego asks, "What do I get?" Service asks, "What can I give?" And life responds very differently to these two questions. People often chase recognition thinking it will give them confidence. But real confidence comes from knowing you are useful, needed, relevant in a meaningful way. When you see the positive impact of your actions on someone's life, no applause is required. The satisfaction is internal. Gratitude naturally grows when you serve. You begin to see how much you've been given. You stop complaining about what's missing and start appreciating what's available. And gratitude softens the heart. It makes success humbling instead of prideful. Service also protects you from arrogance. When things go well in life, ego quietly tries to take credit. It whispers, "You are better than others." Service reminds you that growth is not a personal victory, it is a responsibility. The more you receive, the more you are meant to give. In a world obsessed with self-promotion, choosing service feels almost rebellious. But it is this rebellion that brings peace. You no longer need constant validation. You no longer need to announce your achievements. Your sense of worth comes from contribution, not comparison. Even small acts of service matter. Listening patiently, encouraging sincerely, helping quietly, being kind when it's inconvenient. These acts may never trend online, but they leave a deep imprint on the heart, yours and others. When you live to serve, you stop being fragile. Criticism doesn't shake you as easily. Praise doesn't inflate you. You are grounded, balanced, steady, and slowly life begins to trust you with more responsibility, more influence, more opportunities. Not because you demanded it, but because you were ready for it. Remember this: the goal of life is not to be admired, it is to be meaningful. And meaning is found not in how many people notice you, but in how many people you lift. When external validation becomes less important, something sacred begins to grow inside you. That something is faith, not blind belief, but a quiet trust. Trust in the process, trust in timing, trust that life is unfolding with meaning even when you can't see the full picture. Many people confuse faith with certainty. They think faith means knowing exactly how things will turn out. But faith is not about knowing, it is about trusting. Trusting that even when things don't make sense, they still have purpose. As long as you are dependent on validation, your emotional state is fragile. Praise lifts you up, criticism brings you down, silence makes you anxious. But faith creates emotional stability. It anchors you. It reminds you that your worth is not determined by applause, likes, or approval. When you stop seeking constant validation, you begin to listen more deeply. You notice your intuition. You become aware of the quiet guidance within. Life feels less rushed. Decisions feel more grounded. You stop forcing outcomes and start allowing growth. Faith teaches patience. It reminds you that just because something is delayed doesn't mean it is denied. Many of the most meaningful transformations happen slowly beneath the surface. And without faith, we abandon the process too early. There will be moments when your effort is sincere, but results are invisible. Moments when prayers feel unanswered. Moments when you wonder if your discipline is worth it. Validation would have comforted you in those moments, but faith sustains you. When faith grows, fear loses its grip. Fear thrives on uncertainty. Faith embraces it. You stop panicking about timelines. You stop obsessing over outcomes. You focus on effort, intention, and integrity. One of the greatest signs of maturity is being able to walk forward without constant reassurance, to take responsibility for your growth without waiting for encouragement, to continue showing up even when no one is cheering. Faith gives you that strength. With faith, you stop begging life for proof. You don't need everything to go your way to remain steady. You understand that setbacks are not punishments, they are redirections. That detours are not delays, they are lessons. This doesn't mean you become passive. Faith is not laziness, it is disciplined surrender. You do your best and then you trust the rest. You act with sincerity and release attachment to results. As validation shrinks, comparison also fades. You are no longer worried about who is ahead or behind. You are focused on alignment, on doing what feels right, not what looks impressive. There is a calm confidence that comes from faith. Not arrogance, not entitlement, just inner peace. You no longer need to announce your struggles or why. Our successes. You walk quietly, knowing that what is meant for you cannot be taken away by someone else's opinion. Faith also brings humility. It reminds you that life is bigger than ego, that progress is a gift, that every opportunity is a responsibility. Gratitude naturally replaces pride, and when faith becomes your foundation, you are no longer shaken by temporary outcomes. Whether things go well or not, you remain rooted. You adapt, you learn, you continue. The most beautiful part of faith is this: it frees you from the need to control everything. And in that freedom, peace is born. When you trust the process, you stop seeking permission to grow. When you trust the journey, you stop fearing detours. When you trust life, you finally start living. Validation may feel comforting, but faith is what carries you forward when comfort is gone. Life becomes much lighter. When you understand one simple truth: you were never meant to be perfect. You are meant to be sincere. Yet so many people are exhausted, not because they are lazy or incapable, but because they are chasing an illusion: perfection. Perfection looks attractive from a distance. It promises acceptance. It promises admiration. It whispers, if you do this flawlessly, they will finally approve. But perfection is a cruel master. No matter how much you give, it always asks for more. One mistake, one slip, one imperfect moment, and suddenly you feel like you failed. Progress, on the other hand, is kind. Progress allows you to grow without hating yourself in the process. It understands that learning is messy, that growth is uneven, that becoming better is a journey, not a performance. When you focus on perfection, you become afraid to start, afraid to try, afraid to fail, afraid to look foolish. So many dreams die not because people lack talent, but because they fear imperfection. They wait for the right moment, the right version, the right confidence. And that moment never comes. Progress asks a much gentler question. Can you take one honest step today? Not a flawless step, not an impressive step, just an honest one. When you focus on progress, you stop being harsh with yourself. You learn to celebrate small wins. You notice improvement instead of obsessing over gaps. You build momentum instead of pressure. And momentum is powerful. It carries you forward even on days when motivation is low. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but inside it is rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. Progress is rooted in courage, the courage to show up as you are and grow from there. There will be days when you fall back into old habits, days when discipline feels weak, days when faith feels distant. Perfection would tell you, you failed. What's the point now? Progress gently says, learn, adjust, continue. That mindset changes everything. It keeps you in the game, it keeps you moving, it keeps hope alive. When you stop performing for others and start progressing for yourself, something shifts internally. You are no longer desperate to prove anything. You are focused on becoming. And becoming is far more fulfilling than impressing. Progress also builds humility. You realize that growth never truly ends. There is always something to learn, always space to improve. And instead of feeling discouraged by that, you feel inspired. Life becomes a classroom, not a competition. One of the most freeing moments in life is when you stop trying to look strong and start allowing yourself to become strong. Strength is not the absence of weakness, it is the willingness to work through it. People who focus on progress are resilient. They don't quit when things go wrong, they adapt, they reflect, they keep walking. And over time, that consistency compounds into transformation. Remember this. Nobody grows in a straight line. There will be pauses, detours, setbacks. None of these erase your progress unless you let them define you. You don't need to have everything figured out to move forward. You just need to be sincere in your effort. Life responds to sincerity far more than it responds to perfection. So be patient with yourself, honor your pace, respect your process. Celebrate how far you've come, even as you keep moving forward. Because in the end, life is not asking you to be flawless, it is asking you to be faithful to growth. You were never sent into this world to be approved by everyone. You were sent here to grow, to serve, and to become aligned with your highest values. When you live for applause, your life becomes noisy but empty. When you live with purpose, your life becomes quiet but full. There will always be opinions. There will always be comparisons. There will always be voices telling you who you should be. But peace begins the moment you stop auditioning for acceptance and start committing to growth. Don't let success make you arrogant. Let it make you grateful. Don't let failure make you bitter. Let it make you wiser. Don't let rejection shrink you. Let it refine you. Life is not asking you to impress the world. It is asking you to be faithful to your effort, honest in your actions, and humble in your heart. Walk your path with sincerity. Do your work with discipline. Serve with compassion. Trust the process with faith. And remember, even detours are part of destiny when you are walking with integrity. When you stop trying to impress everyone and start focusing on becoming your best self, something beautiful happens. Life stops feeling like a performance and starts feeling like a prayer. That is when you are truly free. You were not created to live for approval. You were created to live with purpose. And purpose does not ask for applause, it asks for alignment. When you wake up each day asking, how can I grow today? How can I serve today? How can I stay faithful to my values today? Life begins to respond in quiet but powerful ways. Don't rush your journey. Don't envy someone else's chapter. Don't abandon your principles to win temporary praise. Trust that what is meant for you will come to you when you become ready for it, not when you become popular for it. Do your work with sincerity. Walk your path with humility. Leave the results to a higher wisdom. Because in the end, success is not measured by how many people applauded you, but by how truthfully you lived, how deeply you served, and how faithfully you became who you were meant to be. Move forward with courage, act with integrity, and remember, when you live for truth, life itself becomes your greatest reward.